So I'll call the regular meeting.
No, I'll move to come out of, okay.
Call it back to order. We came out of executive session with no, of course, no motions, no action. We go back into our regular meeting. Item 4 is new business, and we do go right into the possible action of the description of the unaffiliated employee benefits. Me being an employee of the town currently, because of the position, I'll step down from this and give the meeting to you, I guess, for the discussion purposes and the vote.
Okay, over the last few months, Mr. Nickerson, Mrs. Hardy, and myself met with Victor and Joe Bergoff from the town to go over a description of benefits for the town of East Lyme non-affiliated general government employees, because there's never been a formalized agreement to just specify what the benefits are outside of when every year we vote on wages and their contributions to insure their premiums and so forth. I think this is an excellent document. It protects the town very well, and I think it also recognizes the contributions made by our non-affiliated department heads. Ms. Hardy, anything to add to that?
No, we're fortunate we have a very good team of department heads to work with, very collegial, and I think that it's only fair that their benefits and work agreements be very specifically stated for them so that they know what the expectations are, and they do a great job living up to our expectations. So I think this formalizes what was before a rather informal document and lays out very clearly for everyone what benefits are and what working conditions are. So I was pleased to work on this and develop it, and to work with our 2 town employees who represented the rest of the group.
Agreed. Thank you. Would you like to move it then for us?
Move approval of the description of the unaffiliated employees' benefits booklet.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comments?
The only comment I have is it's long overdue that when you're attracting, whether you're rewarding or defining to current employees or attracting new employees, that there's a clear understanding of what their benefits package are, and not to have that documented or have it to be outdated is something that this is gonna resolve, and it's the right thing to do.
Agreed.
Concur.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It carries unanimously. Mr. Nickerson, back to you.
Break.
Your vacation.
All right, we'll get back into it then. Item B. And as you see, we have a lot of special appropriations tonight. This is the time of year we're moving money from budget to budget, or sometimes from contingency, because we run so tight in our budgets that we plan the contingency money in case they need it. As you see, we have some department heads here tonight that want to talk about some of these things. First is the planning recording secretary, a special appropriation of $800. Gary Gaishel, out tonight, as many times, you touch that thing, then you lose the static. Out tonight away from the family and asking for some money because they've had a very busy season, both at planning and inland wetlands. So why don't you just talk about how we are here and what your ask is?
Beginning of last year, we had some changeover with our recording secretary, and we were using some town staff. So what would end up happening is, the way they'd gotten paid, after the first hour, we were then having to pay overtime. So with that, the budget started to skyrocket. We also got hit with one very large subdivision, if you will. I think large in terms of time, not scope or size. The subdivision itself, I think, was a 23 lot, 25 lot subdivision, not terribly big, but the amount of time it took at public hearing, over 11 hours in one meeting for one application. So we got hit both at the Inland Wetland Agency and with the Planning Commission. In our budget for last year, we had budgeted, I believe it was $1,500 for that line. So we've started approaching the $2,000 mark. So in this next fiscal year budget, we increased the line item in anticipation of future applications. That said, looking to cover the last 4 months of the fiscal year for our recording secretary. Now, we've solved that problem. We now have Sue Spang, who is not a town employee other than for recording secretary, so we're no longer having to pay her the overtime. We have a contract deal that we worked out. Mark was gracious enough to help with that in Oregon. And Sandy.
And Sandy.
And Sandy, don't, she
Let's give her the
helped
credit.
find the employee, if you will. So with that, Sue has already clerked two meetings, and her minutes are quality. So I think we're in a good position now with recording secretaries and not having to look at future expenditures.
Yeah. You're caught between a rock and a hard place on this with a busy schedule and having to pay overtime. So kind of a no-brainer, folks. We got to let our planning people do their work, and we need a secretary.
I'll move to appropriate and transfer $800 from account 01-01-120-200-500 contingency to account 01-01-117-100-412 planning recording secretary and forward to the Board of Finance for approval.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The next one, I think, is also Gary. You're up here. You wrote this one, too. You could
Yes.
probably just say ditto.
It's the same
Same
request.
person and everything, too?
Same
Correct.
situation.
Okay,
yeah.
so-
Same recording secretary. Sue Spang is also taking the minutes at both.
Okay,
wetlands.
then I'll move to appropriate and transfer $800 from account 01-01-120-200-500 contingency to account 01-01-132-100-412 inland wetlands PT clerical and forward to the Board of Finance for approval.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Just a comment, Gary tries as hard as he can to make those meetings as more and more efficient, because we've had discussions on that. They sometimes, but you can't rush land use decisions and public hearings and all that. And,
Particularly the public hearing, because the public has a right to speak and be heard.
Yeah. and they were
We got
heard.
a lot of.
And they were.
They were heard.
Quite a few, yes.
And so thank you again, Gary. Those are two big land use departments that you head up, and very complicated applications sometimes. So.
I think I'd give credit to both commissions, for the time they're volunteers and for the time that
Indeed.
they put in to hear public comment and cross their Ts, dot their Is, and vet this application in particular. I think they did a fantastic job doing just that. So with that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All, we have a motion second. Any further comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That's those are a couple of easy ones. Thank you, Gary, for coming out tonight. Say hi to the family. Chief Dwyer is here. Chief, if you're not doing calls at 2 in the morning and you're not working your full-time job across the bridge,
Yes, sir.
then you're over here doing your volunteer work as chief, and then you show up at night to a
Doing my
meeting.
diligence.
And then you do inherit a budget that had some holes in it. So why don't you, as quickly as possible,
Just-
kind of run us through why you're in this bit of a mess.
So, over the years, we've had
Say it that
to,
way.
over the last 4 years, we've had to come back to you and the Board of Finance and asked for more money over the years. I put together some figures. There should be a worksheet that Anna helped me out with as well in front of you. It's kind of a worst-case scenario. However, between the contractual obligations of the town and the union, with my full-time firefighters, there's some obligations that have to be met, and there were some overages, whether it be storm coverage, covering shifts, shifts running, calls running late, back-to-back calls, et cetera, et cetera. So through my shortfalls and with me inheriting this budget, I spoke with Anna and Mark offline, off the side, and said, I think I'm going to run out of money. And sure enough, after talking with Anna and working actually with Chief Ricks as well, kind of confirming a lot of my numbers, I am going to run short. So Anna helped us put together a number for overtime. My overtime budget be short about $9,205 is what I would be asking for this tonight for that.
Okay. If you
I mean,
remember, I just one nugget, maybe to get your comment, then we'll do a motion
Yeah.
for further discussion. But if you remember, when we went over the fire budgets, this was also brought up, that it was, you were trying to, in next year's budget, properly bring your numbers to the number that contractually you're stuck with.
So that's correct. So actually, I had a significant budget increase, which was identified
Right.
rather quickly by you guys. And I tried to explain it as best as I could. And that budget increase for next year's budget is I won't say worst case scenario, but that is our contractual obligations that have been agreed upon between the town and the firefighters union. And that's just the true number. And going back 4 or 5 years, looking at that every year, if it wasn't me, it was the previous chief and the previous chief before that, sitting before you asking you for more money. Well, that's pretty irresponsible, if you ask me, does not present a budget that is responsible and shows the correct numbers. So that's what I tried to do tonight, and that's what I tried to do with you a couple weeks ago. I know it might have been a little bit of shell shock, but the numbers are the numbers. Broke it down per holiday, per week. We've encompassed some of their like holiday time, like the Onianic, the fun runs, the boardwalk runs, all those stuff require fire and emergency services to be there. East Lyme Day is a huge day for the town.
Big drain.
It's a great day, but it's also an expensive day.
Right.
But I need to ensure with all the people downtown that we have the right amount of staff and a sufficient amount of staff trained and can get there in a timely manner. So with that being said, and also working fires. We've been very fortunate this year. We've only had a couple off the top of my head. But in those unfortunate circumstances that I need to call a working fire, contractually, my full-time guys get 4 hours of overtime. They get called into the scene. They supplement the volunteers. They supplement the part-time staff. And I need all the help I can get these days, as Mr. Nickerson knows, as we talk. So I put together, I think, a responsible number to get to where we need to get to this year, to the finish line. And I've also put together a budget for you for next year to get us from start to finish within that number.
Without one of these.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I'll move to appropriate and transfer $9,205 from account 01-01-120-200-500 contingency to account 01-25-217-100-614 overtime and forward to the Board of Finance for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further comments or questions?
Chief, just if you could point out something today, because we were talking out in the hall, and you mentioned that if somebody showed up today and said, I want to be a volunteer, how long before that person is going to be able to be utilized?
So-
And how much time would they have to invest getting to that point?
So that's a very, very good question. So if somebody off the street today, and if I had 10 people today show up to the firehouse and they had no prior knowledge, no prior certifications, nothing, fresh off the street saying, I want to help my community, it would be approximately 18 months before between firefighter 1 certification and the EMT certification. Not to mention the costs of each. I think a firefighter 1 class now is about $850, and you're looking at about $1,000 or more for an EMT class.
And how often would they have to go to training?
That would be at least two to three nights a week, and probably all day long, Saturday, Sunday, every weekend or every other weekend. And that would be on top of that person trying to contribute their hours to the fire department, getting familiarized with the apparatus, with the equipment that they needed to do so they could help us as much as they could without them being certified to do some of the things that some of us, the certifications that we have. So we're really kind of behind in that aspect of things, and we're in tough times.
And that's a national trend.
That
too.
is that's a national trend. It's a growing trend. It's an unfortunate trend. And it's just a sign of the times. I get up a couple times a night. My deputy chief, Jim Barone, I don't know how he does it, but he gets up 3-4 times every night if we have runs every night. And he is probably the most dedicated firefighter that I have, firefighter EMT. Lucky to have him on my team. So, but that being said, I don't have 10 Jim Barones. I have one. And I have one of me that's home every other night. I have kids, smaller kids, and so do other volunteers.
Right.
We're fortunate to have meetings like this at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, not at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then still have to get up and go to work. So that's kind of maybe put it into perspective what we deal with and what we do time to time as a volunteer.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions? Moving this money from contingency was there for, and where we have money available for it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Gets us through the year, and it's all you get, so.
Yes, sir.
You know, and there'll be emergencies, there'll be other things, so plan accordingly.
Okay.
Appreciate it, and appreciate your service to the town.
Thank you.
So the next is the transfer of funds from the police budget to the dispatch budget?
Yes.
Yeah, because my agenda's way back here, okay. No, I'm good, it's just, so the dispatch overtime line has seen an increase due to filling of shifts over weekends where we've had part-time dispatchers generally doing it, but if they're not available to work, and we've had a little deficiency there, then the full-time dispatchers are called in and must fill the shifts according to contract. Therefore, it's overtime work. So we're seeing a little bit of a bump there. Chief of Police is working with that group to shore that up. As you know, as you remember, when the chief came in, he talked about putting a 6th dispatcher on, which will cut the need for these part-timers and then cut the overtime budget down. So you can see the correlation between this ask and what he's asking for in his next year's budget to try to solve this problem. So what we're doing is trying to move some money from the police account where there was an officer out, and we saved some money there, to the dispatch overtime line on the amount of $9,600.
I'll move to approve a transfer in the amount of $9,600 from account 01-25-216-100-511 police officers to account 01-25-215-100-214 dispatch overtime effective April 1st, 2019, and forward to the Board of Finance for approval.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any further comment, questions?
I have one question. Anna, with the full-timers taking the place of part-timers, is there an underrun on the part-timers line item that's being used to pay for some of the overtime, plus this 9,000, or?
I only check and see if we did a transfer.
Good question.
And if it is underrunning within the department, do they have to come to us to transfer it from part-time account to the overtime account?
Okay, so we have not, there has been no transfer from the part-time account into the overtime account.
Is the part-time account underrunning?
Not really, it's more or less in line with where it should be.
Okay. That's the reason for the need. You would think the part-time would be underrunning.
Yeah, I mean, it's at 64%, and everything else is at about 68%.
So a little bit.
It's
It's
a
a
little bit,
little
but
under.
not enough to cover what we need.
There's no doubt that a full-time overtime pay is at a higher rate than the part-time, so I wouldn't
big
expect it
time.
to be dollar for dollar.
Big time.
Okay.
Good
I'm just
point.
curious, what was the answer to the question? Do we need to vote on it if they were to transfer it from the regular?
So when it's within their own budgets,
Yeah.
with the approval of the first selectman, we can transfer the funds, and then we bring them before the boards to ratify them, in which you have a group of them on your agenda later this evening.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
we do have a motion already,
Yes, we
right?
do.
It's been seconded, so we'll vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. Is this next one, the ratification ones? Or no? No. So this is the fire chiefs noted that their part-time firefighter accounts were funded prior to the 18-19 wage increases that were approved. In addition, the worksheet was provided for the unaffiliated wage transfers at your previous meeting. It didn't include the first selectman's salary, oh dear, increase in the formula. So what you have is, you have a little bit of a worksheet behind this that shows the need to move and appropriate to transfer some accounts from payroll contingency to various accounts.
I'll move it, so you can
Sure.
discuss it. Move to appropriate and transfer $7,123 from account 01-01-120-100-500 payroll contingency to the following accounts. $1,952 to account 01-01-101-100-111. First Selectmen, $3,111 to account to 01-25-217-100-612, part-time firefighters, NFD, Niantic Fire Department, and $2,060 to account 01-25-218-100-612, part-time firefighters, Flanders Fire Department, and forward to the Board of Finance for approval.
Second.
Any further comment? I'll abstain from this because I am included in this motion somewhere in there, in the middle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And my abstention. The next one I'm not going to dare explain. I'm leaving this to Anna and Bill Shear, who's putting in a late night. This is the vehicle acquisition situation for the program where we have remaining money because we get appropriated funds and then we go out and actually buy vehicles or whatever and we save money, but the money's been appropriated. So
I will do my best.
Thank
I've
you.
been briefed in great detail by Justin and Joe, and Anna, correct me if I'm wrong on anything. So over the last year, the vehicle acquisition program, we ended up saving a lot of money. We got vehicles for less than we thought we were going to get them for. We put a trade in, so we got the vehicle for less, which leaves a balance of $81,000 plus or minus in the acquisition program that we've already bonded, and we cannot use that money to pay back the bond. Is that correct, Anna?
Yes, the only, because it's more than 4% of the amount of the original deal, so we need to use it on, to purchase equipment.
So looking forward, we decided we would look at our capital improvement vehicle acquisition plan for this year, try to fund some of the current requests out of last year's bonded money. So this year, we're requesting a Ford F-250 Super Cab, which is approximately $55,000. And we will take a 2006 Chevy pickup that's in pretty good condition and turn that over to the Board of Ed. I know you guys asked at the last meeting, why are we giving a good vehicle to the Board of Ed? The reason is that is a first line of defense vehicle. It's out there all day long. It's plowing all the time. So it's at the point where we want to replace it because we need it all the time and it has to work every single storm. For the Board of Ed, because they would only be using it intermittently, it's a good vehicle for them. For us, we need to replace it. That's the rationale behind that. It would have been replaced anyway if we weren't giving it to the Board of Ed. We would have just put it down on the roster and just used it for a small transportation vehicle. So it benefits us and it benefits the Board of Ed. So it's a win-win. For the winter, the Parks and Rec has loaned the Board of Ed a truck because the Board of Ed's truck is completely dead, so that vehicle will be sold and the money put back into the acquisition of other vehicles. So that's that one vehicle there. Now we also have engineering vehicle, the 2008 Ford Expedition, that has 133,000 miles on it, and it's broken down 3 times in the last 4 months. So that's been in the shop much more than we've been using it. So it's time to replace that. So we are requesting to get a Ford Escape, which is the same vehicle that the building official just got, to put in the engineering department for one of our vehicles. And that's all previously bonded money, and there's another, I'll go in deeper detail in the next item, because we're gonna be using more bonded money in the next item.
Okay.
Well, are there any questions for Bill?
Yeah,
Understanding this explanation.
so you're saying the money that was gonna be put in for the new budget, you're gonna use some of the 16-17 money. Is that reflected in our new budget?
This is capital, it's strictly capital.
Right, so I look at our capital outlays, capital equipment, is that,
There's only one vehicle left in the current vehicle acquisition plan and the capital plan.
I can, so,
Okay.
in the current budget right now,
Mhm.
the answer to your question is, we have the funds to, to include it to purchase the vehicles in the 1920 budget. So if these items are in fact approved, then we would be able to make the corresponding reductions in the 19.
okay, so they're in both right now until one gets approved.
Correct.
Got it.
I didn't understand your question.
Okay,
Until
sorry,
she
yeah,
explained
no,
it.
I was looking at the,
Yeah.
I was looking at the,
No, I'm,
okay.
Good question.
Got you back, Bill.
thanks, yeah.
Similar question, for the 18-19 budget, is that gonna be fully expended this year? Or does either of these vehicles reduce the 18-19 budget, but it's the 19-20 budget?
So, getting, working on getting the 16-17 squared away, when I looked at, looking at, the 17-18 budget, we did a much better job. I mean, we're like less than 4% remaining, so we'll be able to apply that to pay down on the principal. This year, we're still in the process of getting all the vehicles, but I believe we've done a better job in getting closer to the original estimates. I mean, in this 16-17 year, 2 of the items that we purchased, we actually had trade-ins, and we included the full amount of the purchase price, and then we ended up with doing the trade-ins, and so that's kind of what got us in the jam on this one, if you will.
Fully understand the need to use the money, I'm just trying to understand, one, besides getting new vehicles, which will benefit town employees, when would we potentially see a reduction in the vehicle budget? Next year? The one we're gonna vote on potentially tonight, deliberate tonight? Because we're buying vehicles early, because we have money that we have to use,
Right.
so.
So this vehicle is in next year's capital plan, correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
So that would come out.
Yeah.
So that would reduce next year's.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
So
we-
I actually.
There's only one vehicle left after we get completed what we're doing here
Well,
tonight.
that's for public works.
Public Works, I mean, just for both.
Right.
So, for example, in next year's budget, for the F-250, we have $11,865, and for the skid steer, we have $16,179. We haven't talked about that, that's the next item. And then for the, tell me, what's the vehicle, the engineering vehicle, we have $4,965.
So if we're gonna pay for those fully this year,
They come off of next year's budget.
We would be able to make those reductions in next year's budget, that's correct, yes.
because we're not borrowing new money for these vehicles in this motion, we're using already bonded money.
That's correct, yes.
So, not only would it be a reduction off of next year's budget, but it would be over the 2 or 3 year, the 3 year,
5 years.
5-year loan
Right.
that you'd be paying for these vehicles.
Yeah, that makes.
So you won't get all 87 back next year, but you'll reduce it by the 2 numbers you just gave us for 5 years. Thank you.
5